Oh, hey there, and welcome to this Piano Fills workshop. I've really been looking forward to this session. What I had in mind was for us to spend a little bit of time focusing on a specific aspect of embellishing that melody. Alright, now when it comes to piano fills, we can really think of them in terms of two categories. We've got melodic, and we've got harmonic. Melodic, where we're using single note motifs, okay, or musical ideas, and harmonic ideas where we're using chords or portions of those chords, and of course combinations of both. Here we're going to be just focusing on the melodic, and specifically a technique that you'll make your own, because it really serves as somewhat of a safety net when it comes to inventing your own fills, okay, or improvisational lines in general. Okay, you can take this way beyond just piano fills and embellishing those melodies. There will be those times where you want to create more enhanced improvisational lines, perhaps, totally getting away from that melody. All right, these techniques will certainly help you. Now, this specific strategy that we're going to focus on this session involves using chord tones. Specifically, we're going to start our fill on a chord tone, okay, any chord tone. And we're going to end our fill on a chord tone as well. Now, is this a rule? No, it's not. This is a strategy. Okay, one of many. And it's one that I really think will it'll really shed some light on the fact that your potential is way beyond what you might even imagine when it comes to creating interesting little lines to embellish those melodies. Alright, for example, Misty, this is the end of the first chorus, and we're approaching that turnaround here. I've got that G7. Alright, take a look at the second measure of the excerpt if you're using that. I've got that G7. Now the melody is G, and I'm also going to use that as the beginning of my fill, because the melody has been established once I do this. Right there, okay? As soon as the note is played, the melody has been established. So what I'll do is something like starting, slow motion here, starting on this chord tone, and work toward another chord tone in either direction, and I'm going to choose to the right. This is the chord tone B, the third of the G7 chord that I'm choosing, and I'm going to make a goal of proceeding from this first note of the fill to this last note of the fill, okay, or this last note of the section of the fill. Let's put it that way, because our fill is actually going to last for longer than a measure here, because we've got the G7, the C7, and the F9. Okay, before we have those pickup notes with that B flat 13 back into the beginning of Misty. Okay, the beginning of the chorus. Okay, so we're using this chord tone as the beginning of this portion of the fill, and this chord tone as the end of that portion of the fill. And I'm simply climbing up. You can do it any way you want to. We can use any of the tones in between, or all of them, playing chromatically here in half steps, okay, or just a portion of that. But the thing is, I want to go from the G to the B. Now I'm going to B3, and we're going to be playing C7, and I'll go with the chord tone. Now my goal here is to again, begin the fill on this chord tone and end this segment of the fill on this next chord tone, and the other part of this goal is to be leading to the next portion of the fill on time. Okay, for example, we have C7 here on beat 3. So on beat 3, we want to be playing something that will be compatible with the C7 chord. What we do from the beginning of the fill, from when we play this G, to the time where we play the first note of the fill beginning on C7, that part of the fill, whatever we do, pretty much it's going to be just fine. Okay, and that's the neat thing about connecting chords. Now once I played this G, I have several options as to how long I want the notes in between this G and this B to last. Okay? You follow me? As long as I end up on the third beat playing something that's compatible with this C7 chord. This is our strategy here. Alright, so we're not thinking in terms of 8th notes, 16th notes, but we can be, okay? And I'm going to actually acknowledge approaching playing in that fashion as well in a little while. Here's the chord tone that I chose because it's so close to the chord tone that I'm coming from. It makes the line nice and coherent. I like the idea here, just using all the chord tones of C7. Now moving to that F9 chord. Look how nice and close this chord tone F7 is to the E of C7 that we just came from. Yeah. Here I just took that F9 chord, here it is, in its root position, basic form. This was the note I was using, the 7 of the chord. Just playing those chord tones separately to finish that fill. Have a beat here on B flat 13, so I'll go ahead to actually complete the fill by playing this third of the chord, D, which is so close to this E flat, and that F9 chord that I just came from. Yeah. There we go. Alright. Now again, we weren't thinking in terms of 8th notes, 16th notes. I wasn't thinking in terms of music notation, and by doing that, by not making it a point to do that, it frees me up. Okay? I can pretty much play with what kind of comes naturally. However, it can be very helpful to go ahead and create our fills in little building blocks, doing in fact just that, thinking in terms of notation. For example, 8th notes. I'm going to play this again. Here's beat 1. What I can do here is think about starting the fill on beat 2. Now if I think in terms of eighth notes, I have two eighth notes that I can play before beat 3 when I'm playing that C7. Here's another chord tone. This time it's a chord tone of C7, so that works. Now, here I am on beat 1 of the C7. What can I do? Well, let's go ahead with this chord tone to chord tone approach using those steps in between. There you go. There are eighth notes here. 4 eighth notes complete 2 beats. And how perfect that works out for us because we have C7 for 2 beats. Now we have F9. Why don't we just start on this chord tone? Perfectly okay to use repetition. So we'll start this portion of the fill on the 9 of F9 and make our way to the 7 and use something in between to get us there. But let's not use chromaticism or playing in half steps exclusively here. How about just something a little bit simpler? We have 2 beats. Notice that was 4 eighth notes lasting a duration of 2 beats. Chord tone to chord tone. The note in between happened to be a chord tone because it's the F. Going from the 9 to the 1 to the 7. Okay. Completing the fill on a chord tone of B flat 13. This time going with that F on B3. It works nicely. That was the first. It was the second. Very simple. Very simple. Keep it nice and simple, and what's really great about keeping things simple is we can always expand on them. For example, we're thinking in terms of the eighth notes here, and that second time around, here we are, 2 eighth notes completing beat number 2. Here we have 4 eighth notes completing beats 3 and 4. Let's suppose we wanted to put a little bit more animation into this fill. There's beat 2, here comes beat 3. Now here's the fill that we started with. That segment of the fill. Eighth notes. What if we play these notes twice as quickly and play them twice? Here we are. Back to where we were before. You get the idea? A simple little addition. What's neat about this is the fill starts very simply, just eighth notes, then 8 16th notes, making its way down. Nice. Now, of course, let's excerpt this. This this is what we were doing, why don't we just reverse that the second time around? Yeah. What does that do? It leads us to a point where we're inclined to play a different chord tone for that F9. Isn't that true? So we're close to this B flat. The tendency would be to go ahead and continue the fill using this A, or continuing the fill using this C. You got the idea? Yeah. Now the neat thing is you're focusing on a small segment here, and there's so much you can do within this little area. Here's beat 2. We haven't done much with that. We've kind of kept it simple, but that's kind of added to the effectiveness of this fill because we started simply. Then our fill gained momentum, and it slowed down a bit, okay, by going back to those eighth notes. Yeah. Now let's look at this. We've got an interesting little segment here that if we just make one little alteration anywhere we want to, can you come up with one little change that you'd make to this line? Just one note different? Because it can make all the difference. How about here we're not ending on the chord tone. Let's try a few things. That would work. It's just an option. Another option is to go outside the box. Now here we are, we've got this already. How about substituting one of these notes with something outside of the boundaries of these two chord tones? Like, how about instead of hitting that G again, let's just move to a chord tone up here, then back into that little box. Slow motion. Instead of this G, we play the C, in context. Now, let's say we want to play the melody, and this time the fill is not going to start on the melody note. Okay, on beat 2, let's use a different chord tone from that G7. Okay, beat 2, let's go to a different chord tone. In that G7, let's use this D. How about a simple 16th note idea? Something like that, huh? Chord tone to chord tone, back to the chord tone. Down, down, skip up, right? Just stepping down from this chord tone, stepping down, skipping up. And then we'll continue into that C7. Slow motion. Now what happens if we go to what we had before for that C7? That would mean skipping from this D, where we are now, to the B flat. That would work. All kinds of fun you can have with these little melodic motifs, these little melodic ideas. You see, if you really just focus on a little segment and you realize your potential within that segment, oh, the floodgates will open. Because when you take what you've learned, because you've really focused and made yourself familiar working through this chord progression, all right? So another time that you're in a similar scenario, you will much more easily adapt, okay, and things will come more natural. And this is what I want for you, a natural unfolding process when it comes to your inner creativity. Your potential for creativity is unlimited. And as you become more and more acquainted with that inner genius of yours, remember, always, always play with passion.